At 09:15 on the morning of September 23, 1942, Corporal James Mitchell stood in a clearing on Guadalcanal, staring at something that made no sense. A dead Japanese sniper hung from a coconut palm 30 feet above the jungle floor, suspended by rope, his rifle still strapped across his chest, swaying slightly in the humid morning air. 23 years old. For weeks in combat. Zero understanding of what he was looking at. The 1st Marine Division had landed on Guadalcanal 6 weeks earlier. Since then, 47 Marines had been killed by invisible snipers. Another 92 wounded. The Japanese fired from somewhere in the canopy, killed Marines, then vanished. Search parties found nothing. No tracks. No shell casings. No bodies. The snipers were ghosts. Until Mitchell shot one out of a tree and watched him hang there like a gruesome ornament, revealing the secret the Japanese had been using to slaughter American troops across the Pacific. If you want to see how Marines turned this discovery into a tactical revolution that saved thousands of lives, hit that like button. It helps us share more forgotten stories from the war. Subscribe if you haven't already. Back to Mitchell. He'd killed the sniper 40 minutes earlier during a routine patrol near the Lunga River. His squad had taken fire. Single shots. Precise. One Marine down with a bullet through the shoulder. Mitchell had spotted movement 60 feet up in a coconut palm. He'd emptied half a magazine from his M1 Garand into the fronds. The shooting stopped. Then the body appeared. Not falling. Hanging. Swinging from rope wrapped around the trunk and the sniper's chest. The man was dead, but he hadn't dropped. He just hung there, rifle still in position, camouflaged so perfectly that even dead and exposed, Mitchell could barely distinguish him from the palm fronds. Mitchell called for his sergeant. Staff Sergeant Howard Chen arrived 3 minutes later. Chen had been fighting Japanese since the Philippines. He'd seen bonsai charges, infiltrators, suicide attacks. He'd never seen this. The problem had started the day the Marines landed. August 7, 1942. Operation Watchtower. The 1st Marine Division, 16,000 men, hit the beaches expecting heavy resistance. They got the opposite. The Japanese construction workers building the airfield had fled into the jungle. The Marines secured Henderson Field without firing a shot. Then the sniper started. First casualty came on August 8. Private Thomas O'Brien, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines. Shot through the head while filling his canteen at a stream. No one saw the shooter. No one heard where the shot came from. The muzzle report echoed through the jungle canopy, bouncing off trees, impossible to locate. Second casualty, August 9. Corporal William Drake. Shot in the back while walking between foxholes. Again, no visual on the shooter. The bullet came from somewhere above, somewhere in the dense canopy of coconut palms and strangler figs that towered 80 feet over the jungle floor. By August 15th, 12 Marines were dead from sniper fire. By September 1st, 31. The pattern was always the same. Single shot. One casualty. No trace of the shooter. Marines searched the trees after each attack. They found nothing. They fired blindly into the canopy. Wasted thousands of rounds. The snipers stayed hidden, picked their targets, killed with impunity. The Japanese had a significant advantage. Their Arisaka Type 97 sniper rifles used a 6.5 mm cartridge that produced minimal smoke and almost no muzzle flash. In the shadows of the jungle canopy, the rifles were nearly impossible to spot when fired. American Marines, by contrast, carried M1903 Springfield rifles and M1 Garands that produced substantial smoke and flash. Every time a Marine fired, he gave away his position. Japanese snipers also had patience. They climbed into position before dawn. They stayed motionless for 10, 12, sometimes 16 hours. They didn't eat, didn't drink, didn't move. They waited for the perfect shot, took it, then stayed hidden until nightfall. American commanders tried everything. They ordered Marines to move only in groups. The snipers adapted, waiting for isolated targets. They ordered suppressive fire into suspicious trees before patrols advanced. The snipers shifted positions. They brought in artillery to blast sections of jungle. The snipers moved to untouched areas. Lieutenant Colonel William J. Whaling arrived on Guadalcanal in late August. 47 years old. 23 years in the Marine Corps. Executive officer of the 5th Marines. He'd fought in France during World War I, served in Nicaragua, Haiti, and China. He knew jungle warfare better than almost anyone in the division. General Alexander Vandegrift, commander of the 1st Marine Division, gave Whaling a specific mission: form a scout sniper detachment. Find out how the Japanese were killing Marines. Stop them. Whaling selected 40 men. Experienced hunters, champion marksmen, men who'd grown up in forests, who understood how to move quietly, how to read terrain, how to think like predators. He trained them in stalking, camouflage, observation. He taught them to think like snipers, to anticipate where an enemy would hide, how he'd approach, when he'd shoot. The Scout Sniper Detachment deployed on September 10th. Their mission was reconnaissance and counter-sniper operations. They moved through the jungle in teams of 2 or 3, observing, learning, trying to understand an enemy that seemed supernatural. For 2 weeks, they found nothing. The Japanese snipers were too good, too patient, too well concealed. Whaling's men searched trees, examined sightlines, studied the jungle canopy for hours. They saw coconut palms, strangler figs, massive banyan trees with trunks 8 feet in diameter. They saw 1,000 places a man could hide. They saw nothing that explained how the Japanese were doing it. Then Corporal Mitchell shot the sniper out of the tree on September 23rd, and everything changed. Sergeant Chin studied the hanging body. The sniper was secured to the tree trunk with rope. Not just rope around his waist. A complex harness system. Rope around his chest, under his arms, wrapped around the trunk, tied to lower branches. The man had climbed 60 feet, tied himself in place, and created a shooting platform that prevented him from falling even if wounded or killed. The camouflage was extraordinary. The sniper wore a suit made from coconut palm fiber, the shaggy reddish-brown material that grows at the base of palm fronds. The suit covered his entire body. From the ground, he looked exactly like part of the tree. The suit even had sections that mimicked the hanging dead fronds that dangle from coconut palms. Chun called for Lieutenant Frank Getch, commander of the division's intelligence section. Getch arrived with 2 Japanese-speaking intelligence specialists and a photographer. They documented everything: the rope system, the camouflage suit, the rifle, the position, the sight lines the sniper had dominated. They cut the body down. The harness system was sophisticated. The sniper had used climbing rope, the kind Japanese fishermen used for scaling cliffs to collect seabird eggs. The rope was tied in a configuration that allowed the sniper to lean out from the trunk, creating a stable shooting position while remaining secured if he lost consciousness from wounds or exhaustion. The camouflage suit was made from local materials. Coconut palm fiber woven into a loose mesh garment that covered the head, torso, and legs. The suit wasn't uniform issued. It appeared handmade, constructed on Guadalcanal from materials gathered in the jungle. Getch realized what they'd discovered. This wasn't improvisation. This was doctrine. The Japanese had trained their snipers to do this. To climb high, tie themselves in, camouflage with local vegetation, and stay in position for extended periods. The intelligence section examined Japanese documents captured earlier in the campaign. They found references to tree ambush positions. They found training manuals that described vertical concealment techniques. The Japanese military had developed these tactics before the war, refined them in China, perfected them in the Pacific. Within 24 hours, Getch briefed every battalion commander in the division. The Japanese snipers were in the trees, high up, secured with rope, camouflaged with vegetation. They climbed before dawn, stayed all day, descended after dark. That's why Marines never found them. That's why search parties came up empty. The snipers were 40, 50, 60 feet overhead, invisible against the canopy. The Marines needed new tactics. Fast. Whaling convened his scout sniper detachment. They had the intelligence. Now they needed solutions. The problem was simple. The Marines were searching horizontally. They needed to search vertically. First solution: train Marines to climb. The Corps brought in men who'd grown up climbing trees. Lumberjacks from Oregon and Washington. Farm boys from Georgia and Alabama who'd climbed for pecans and walnuts. They taught basic climbing techniques to infantry platoons. How to use rope. How to shimmy up smooth trunks. How to move through the canopy without falling. Second solution: 2-man counter-sniper teams. 1 Marine climbs. 1 stays on the ground with a rifle, covering the climber. If the climber finds a Japanese sniper, he signals down. The ground Marine takes the shot. If the Japanese sniper shoots first, the ground Marine knows where to return fire. Third solution, systematic canopy searches. Before advancing through any area, two teams climb trees on opposite sides of the route, providing elevated observation. They search the canopy for unnatural shapes, vegetation that doesn't match, rope, or equipment that indicates a sniper position. Fourth solution, 37mm anti-tank guns firing canister rounds. Canister turns the gun into a giant shotgun. Point it at a suspicious tree, fire, and the blast shreds everything in a 60-foot radius. Expensive, loud, wasteful, but effective. If you suspect a sniper but can't locate him precisely, blast the entire tree. Problem solved. Whaling's detachment field-tested these tactics over the next 2 weeks. They worked. On October 3rd, a counter-sniper team near the Matanacaw River spotted a Japanese sniper tied into a banyan tree 70 feet up. The team used the new techniques. One Marine climbed an adjacent tree. The ground Marine covered him. When the climber reached canopy level, he had a clear sight line to the Japanese sniper. He signaled down. The ground Marine fired 6 rounds. The Japanese sniper slumped in his harness, dead but still suspended by rope. On October 7th, during the Marine assault across the Matanacaw, Whaling scout snipers identified 11 Japanese sniper positions before the main attack. They used the climbing technique to get into the canopy, locate the enemy, then directed 37mm fire to eliminate them. The assault proceeded with 0 casualties from sniper fire. On October 12th, a patrol from the 7th Marines encountered a Japanese sniper in the jungle south of Henderson Field. The sniper killed 1 Marine, wounded another. The patrol sergeant remembered the new doctrine. He ordered his men to search vertically. They found the sniper 45 feet up in a coconut palm, tied in place, wearing a palm fiber suit. They called for a 37mm gun. 3 canister rounds obliterated the tree and the sniper. The tactics spread through the division. By late October, every rifle company had at least 2 Marines trained in climbing and counter-sniper techniques. Every platoon understood the Japanese tree sniper doctrine. The psychological advantage shifted. Japanese snipers had relied on invisibility. Once Marines knew where to look and how to respond, that invisibility vanished. The snipers were still dangerous, still deadly, but no longer supernatural. They were men in trees, and men in trees could be killed. The numbers told the story. September 1942, before Marines understood the tree sniper tactic, 47 Marines killed by snipers, 92 wounded. October 1942, after the discovery and implementation of counter-tactics, 18 Marines killed by snipers, 34 wounded. November, 9 killed, 21 wounded. December, for killed, 11 wounded. By January 1943, when the Japanese evacuated Guadalcanal, sniper casualties had dropped to nearly nothing. The 1st Marine Division had identified the threat, developed effective counter-tactics, and trained the entire division in their execution. The intelligence spread beyond Guadalcanal. Marine Corps headquarters at Quantico produced a training bulletin in November 1942 documenting Japanese tree sniper tactics. The bulletin included photographs of the rope harnesses, the camouflage suits, the climbing techniques. It described the counter-tactics developed by Whaling scout snipers. Every Marine division training for Pacific deployment received the bulletin. By early 1943, Marines landing on Tarawa, New Georgia, and Bougainville knew about Japanese tree snipers. They knew to search vertically. They knew to use climbing teams. They knew to employ canister rounds against suspicious trees. The Army adopted the same tactics. The 37th Infantry Division, the Americall Division, and the 43rd Infantry Division all incorporated Marine counter-sniper doctrine into their training. Army units deployed to New Guinea and the Philippines used the climbing and canopy search techniques developed on Guadalcanal. The Japanese adapted. By mid-1943, they'd largely abandoned tree sniper tactics in favor of concealed ground positions, spider holes, and reverse slope ambushes. The tactic had worked brilliantly until the Americans understood it. Once compromised, it became a liability. A man tied to a tree with rope can't retreat. If discovered, he's a fixed target. Some Japanese snipers continued using trees throughout the war, particularly on isolated islands where they faced poorly trained American units. But against veteran Marine and Army divisions, the tree sniper tactic became obsolete after Guadalcanal. The counter-tactics developed by Whaling and his scout snipers became foundational doctrine. Modern Marine scout sniper training still includes canopy search techniques and vertical threat assessment. The principle remains: enemies exploit 3 dimensions. Defenders must think in 3 dimensions. Corporal James Mitchell survived Guadalcanal. He fought on Tarawa in November 1943, where he earned the Silver Star for knocking out a Japanese machine gun bunker. He survived Saipan in June 1944. He was wounded on Okinawa in April 1945, a bullet through the left shoulder. He recovered and returned to Michigan after the war. He rarely talked about combat. His family knew he'd fought in the Pacific. They didn't know details. In 1983, 41 years after Guadalcanal, a historian researching Marine scout sniper tactics contacted Mitchell. The historian had found Mitchell's name in after-action reports from September 1942. Mitchell had written the initial field report describing the hanging Japanese sniper. Mitchell agreed to an interview. He described the morning he shot the sniper out of the tree. How strange it looked. How the body hung there. How Sergeant Chun had examined the rope harness and realized the Japanese were using doctrine, not improvisation. The historian asked Mitchell if he understood the significance of what he'd discovered. Mitchell shrugged. He said he'd just done his job. Shot an enemy sniper. Called his sergeant. Wrote a report. He hadn't known it would change Marine Corps tactics. But it had. That single incident, one corporal shooting one sniper, revealed a pattern that saved hundreds, probably thousands of American lives across the Pacific theater. Lieutenant Colonel William Whaling continued commanding scout sniper operations through Guadalcanal. He later commanded the 1st Marines at Cape Gloucester and the 29th Marines on Okinawa. He retired as a colonel in 1946. He died in 1975, age 80. His innovations in jungle warfare and counter-sniper tactics are still taught at Marine Corps schools. The Scout Sniper Detachment he formed on Guadalcanal became the model for modern Marine Scout Sniper platoons. Every Marine infantry battalion today has a Scout Sniper platoon trained in reconnaissance, target interdiction, and battlefield intelligence gathering. The lineage traces directly to Whaling's 40 men on Guadalcanal in September 1942. The coconut palm fiber camouflage suits captured on Guadalcanal are displayed at the National Museum of the Marine Corps in Quantico, Virginia. The museum also has photographs of Japanese snipers tied into trees, demonstration models of the rope harness systems, and copies of the Marine Corps training bulletins distributed in 1942 and 1943. Marine Corps historian Dr. Norman Hatch wrote in 1994, "The discovery of Japanese tree sniper doctrine on Guadalcanal represents a clear example of tactical adaptation under combat conditions. Marines identified a threat, analyzed it, developed countermeasures, and disseminated those measures throughout the force in a matter of weeks. That cycle, identify, analyze, counter, disseminate, became the model for tactical innovation throughout the Pacific War." So what did you think about how Marines solved the Japanese tree sniper problem? Did this change how you see tactical adaptation in combat? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, give this video a like. It helps more history enthusiasts discover these untold perspectives from the war. Every single like tells YouTube to show this story to more people. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another deep dive into the forgotten moments that shaped World War II. There are so many more stories like this waiting to be told. Stories about Marines who turned the enemy's advantages into tactical lessons that saved thousands of lives.